The so-called stolen generations are the victims of the Australian government's policy of removing Aboriginal children from their families. And although that ended in the late 60s, the damage is being felt decades later. And right now in the UK, far from learning from that, we have our own stolen generations happening every single day in the hidden and secretive world of the family court, based on reports often written by CAFCAS, a state organisation who has been utterly failing our children for the last 20 years or so, putting back abused children with abusers while destroying safe, close and loving families. Imagine losing a child to illness or accident. That void in the very pit of your soul, waking up night after night thinking that you heard your child's laughter or saw their smile or just felt them next to you. And when you realise that's gone, we have a processing system called grief. And even though that child will always be in our hearts and minds, eventually we'll have some kind of closure and can move on. But imagine a kidnap scenario where you know that that child is out there growing without you and needing their dad and hurting. Imagine the kidnapper sending you messages saying that your once outgoing, bright and gregarious child, who never had so much as a nervous twitch when they were with you, had now been referred to child mental health services for what they term distressing levels of OCD, an absolutely classic indicator of parental alienation. And then right in the midst of this sleepless nightmare, you're thrown into the most adversarial of systems in the family court, where you're up against someone who charges more per day than most people get paid in a month, and their sole job is to destroy you. And their perverse incentive is that the worse they make things, the more they get paid. Now the irony is, if I was to go out now, get blind drunk, steal a car, crash it into a kid, the state would pay to ensure that I had a fair trial. In the family court, if you can't afford the 10, 20, 30, 60, 90,000, you're utterly on your own. And it's brutal. And nobody wins in the family court, except of course the barristers who engineered the situation. But for men it's particularly brutal, because we're made to feel like we're just completely emasculated, nothing more than sperm donors, an accessory to parenting that can be disposed of when no longer biologically required. No wonder levels of suicide amongst fathers going through this system is an absolute scandal in itself. Now don't get me wrong, there are adults who should never be near children now or again. And the state provides a mechanism for that, and that's okay. And then there are parents who might need a little help. And providing it's done well, then the state can help, and that's okay. But then there are fathers who were there to cut the cord at their child's birth, there every single day to teach them how to swim and ride a bike, how to be strong and brave, who read to them every single night, how to live and love and laugh and be kind and thoughtful, how to do music. Parents who never got their children to school 1 minute late, who never missed an assembly or a concert, who had a DBS check because they were helping in their school IT class. Parents who weren't on anybody's radar, had no concerns, didn't take drugs. Before the family court started, I'd never even stood in a court. I don't have any domestic violence or domestic abuse charges against me. I've never been arrested. There are no concerns. And yet now those parents are being told that they can't father their own children. And that's not okay. And the irony is that there's actually nothing was said. I can still adopt a child of my son's age. I can still play dad to another child of my son's age, but not to my own son. Despite every single report showing that particularly boys do worse without their fathers in their life. 200 years ago, it was legal to keep a black man as a slave. 60 years ago, you could be imprisoned for loving someone of the same sex. 50 years ago, a man could rape his wife. None of those were right then. None of that was okay then. And it's not okay now because we've learnt from the past, and yet we have our own stolen generations happening right now. And we cannot do nothing. We cannot sit back and let this just happen when the future of our children is at stake. Now, I'm not affiliated to any one group. There are so many groups out there. There's the Bob Reed Foundation, there's Families Need Fathers, there's Fathers for Justice, there's Parental Alienation UK. You know, this isn't just, there's nothing special about my story. This is happening to people like me every single day. I'm not unique. And we cannot let this keep happening. So help those groups to help the fathers to do all they ever wanted to do, which is just be a father.